We have the pleasure of speaking with a son of the soil who has a special talent for poetic expression. He is none other than James Galloway. Pleasant good morning, James, and welcome to Good Morning SKN.
Good morning to you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Our pleasure having you. So we'll dive straight into it. The theme for this year is always be a poet, even in prose. Now, what does that mean to you?
At first, when I heard it, it seemed a little contradictory given what prose is and what poetry is. But then as I thought about it a little more, I realized that I think, well, for me personally, as a poet, I always do it, because even when writing, more structured documents, I still, add a little poetic flair to them, to hook a reader. They're both, to me, just forms of storytelling. I think ultimately poetry, prose, forms of writing, they're just means of storytelling, conveying information. It is just how the artist chooses to relay that information, relay that story. I think they're just options. So I think definitely the poetic style verse can be integrated into prose.
Okay.
Well, obviously, James, you're a very young guy. When I think of poets, I think, and we spoke with a poet, one who is part of a society yesterday, who basically said that it's a dying art. And as someone who's very young, I'm curious to know how you got into it and why you have maintained your interest in it.
Well, I don't consider myself to be very young. Very bad. I started when I would say very young in terms of, but actually getting into this spoken word art form, I think I would say that started a few years ago. I remember there was a Culturama, because I'm based in Nevis, Culturama Queen contestant, some welcoming or something. And I was asked to do a piece, myself and a few other poets. And I did the piece. That was my first performance. I think Clayton Huggins had asked me. And while I was there, I think after everything went well. It was a nice performance. It was a nice, gathering of poets. And after the show, was Stephen Love invited me to Island Expressions. And at that time, I didn't know what Island Expressions was. And then after putting it off, here and there, I actually went. And my first Island Expressions, the first time I went to Island Expressions was a slam. It was a poetry slam. I went up, I started my piece, and boss went completely blank.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, went completely blank. And gathered my bearings, said my piece, and I didn't win that slam, but I've since that time I've not entered a poetry competition that I didn't, win. Yeah.
That's a great story. I like the perseverance coming through. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what made you stop in the middle of saying your poem?
I went blank. I went blank. There's just nerves.
Just nerves. Okay.
Because the thing about it, what I've always written, but spoken word poetry, what it really was, there's a one of the most common fears among people is actually public speaking. So I'd always written poetry, and to me, I had a little bit of that fear. So I entered spoken word really to just,
overcome it.
Overcome that fear, and then, I'm highly competitive in that sphere. So then after the slam, when the slams and the poetry competitions, I just kept challenging myself, and the outcomes are very positive.
Good stuff. So who's your favorite poet, if I may ask?
I have a few.
Ooh.
At the top of that, I think at the top two for me would be Chesley Manners and Lachlan Tatum. I think those are my two favorite spoken word poets. Chesley just has a way of making things laughable. Chesley just has a way of making things laughable. And I think Lachlan he's very thought-provoking in the way he in the pieces he writes and things. I think also Pension is always is there for me, and Kimberly Knight. I like hearing her pieces too. I like hearing the way she delivers. I like hearing, the style of writing she does. They're very. You feel like you get a piece of her soul when she's really delivering her pieces.
Okay.
And no, this person I know him as a writer rather than a poet. But Paul Keynes Douglas.
Okay.
Paul Keynes Douglas. Yeah, I think those form the top, because I consider Paul Keynes a poet as well.
Okay.
It's interesting because when we were having this discussion on poetry, Paul Keynes Douglas came to my mind yesterday, and I was actually going to mention his name, and I'm glad that you did that, because not only are you mentioning his name, but Lachlan's name and Kimberly's name. You're making me a little nostalgic, James, to be honest, when you talk about hearing Kimberly, because I've heard the way that she performed, so this is really interesting. Are any of your poems published anywhere, James?
Yes, I've done a few pieces that are published like by request. I myself haven't published anything because there's a lot of reasons. Most of it just comes down to time. The endless procrastination. Because you have the pieces and all these things. But a lot of my pieces, they are written since I started spoken word. I really write to be heard. So a lot of the pieces, actually, just reading them, they probably won't convey the same way as hearing them, because they're not written with appropriate grammatic structure. They're written for my part in speaking, where I want to put the emphasis, the word,
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I have to think out before heading to publishing. Maybe publish with an audiobook or something.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So since we're in the vein of writing, how has your writing evolved over the years?
How is if I can change the question a bit, because how is kind of, I don't know how I would answer the whole question.
Okay.
Simply because it is what it is. You if you listen to it, you'll hear it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
I would like to address the why though, in terms of the reason it evolved over the years from where it started and what happened. And I think a major, even the names I call, a major part of that was just sharing this space with other creatives, other poetry events. Like Island Expression really played a big part in developing my skill. And once I started performing on stage, my writing changed because I realized the requirements for stage in terms of spoken word. They required something a little different, so that changed my writing. There was also guys like, why can't I remember his name? But he had Irvin, the taxi stand. When they used to put on the taxi stand, we used to meet as a group of poets by the taxi stand, and we'd, share pieces, write pieces. In fact, and that was something, he would give little challenges. So he would, we give little challenges. So write about this, write about that, pick a topic on this spot and write about, and that helped to develop, the style. And then there was Need to Speak with Clayton Huggins. So I think just being in the space with other poets, hearing other perspectives, the Pankos, all those people, the Clayton Huggins, all those people, just hearing them, even though it's not your style, even though it's not your cadence, it still adds something to what you do. And I think I've incorporated all those experiences into what it is now.
Here's my question for you now, James. Obviously, when you were writing poetry, I think you said it earlier, you said you wrote to be heard, you're expressing yourself, it's coming out. I want to know, on the flip side of that, whether poetry has influenced the way that you see the world.
That's a chicken or the egg kind of question. Perhaps it has, but I've personally not made a distinction between what has influenced me and what I influence in terms. I don't know that you can separate those things. I look at it as I'm just expressing experiences and observations, and just maybe the way, and I think it's experiences. I think what makes a poem, a piece, any art impactful is that it's something that everyone kind of knows, kind of feels, but you put it over in a way that no one has ever thought to put it over in a way before. And yes, maybe in writing, it will change your perspective because you start to think about the way you think. You put down words, you cross out words, you're like, why is that? So you begin to question yourself. So it does have an impact on you. And I think by putting the piece out, you do have an impact on it. So I don't think it's something that can be separated. I don't know what part in the way in the cycle I started, way in the cycle I end, but I just consider it a cycle. I don't really separate them. Yeah. This piece is called The Naked Truth. I selected it because it's actually a piece written about my process in creating a poem, writing a piece, using what I call a long metaphor. These days, it's all about the outfits. And these kicks were probably made by Nike on the hands of a Filipino youth, also you could like me. Or it might just be made by Stacey Adams, but that's above average, reserved for the privilege. But at this price, I definitely got to have it. Yes, these outfits at the outlets for profit that contribute to expensive taste on a poor man's pocket, but that's cool, because I don't need to save all of the time, just some of the time. Silly as it sounds, these outfits determine my benefits, brand new, brand name, so I can look like I have money even when I'm penniless. And while you're at it, give me 4 pairs of socks, no reds, just whites, definitely no blacks. And for the rest of the year, I'm only wearing slacks. So, forget jeans. I am stitching dreams. I got plans to turn my words into sewing machines. And product more expensive than a pair of vintage Gucci. Needed some needles, got the hookup from a junkie, got the thread from a blogger, he imported from China, so it's pure. Custom-made Gab the poetry's couture. My fabric is logic, arranged them in bars that are smuggled through a convict. He used to kill time, now he serves time for murder. Gave me a kite, told me to take it to his mother. She read it and she said I could use it as a tag, but only if I knocked her off a Burberry bag. So tagged it is. I'm about bespoke tailoring. So I hope this one-size-fits-all system is listening. Honesty is my tape measure, and my definition of style is functional. I am making garments that get the jobs done. I'm talking fatigues, no rhinestones, no pearl snaps, no arrowhead pockets, none of that quasi-homosexual agenda they call swag. I refuse to clean my shoes 5 times a day to stand on the block doing nothing. My sneakers are scuffed for a reason. I got places to be. No shortcut tight jeans for me. I am a man. I give my room to dangle. Forgive me if I don't want to be a part of this zombie culture hypnotized by fans, treads, and all these other concoctions that some advertising consultant can dream up to convince me that my outward appearance determines my worth. My grandfather told me, man make the bridges, bridges don't make the man. I have come to make alterations to your very thoughts. What makes you you is not hinged on a piece of cloth you bought. The real is hidden in the pattern of your soul, tailored by the universe itself. Let your spirit be your fashion advisor. I give you the naked truth, because the truth is the emperor's new clothes. If you are wise, you will see them. I stand here whispering curses on every mannequin ever posed. I testify that even if I had nothing but skin to cover my toes, I would still be fly.
What was the inspiration? That was a beautiful poem, but what was the inspiration behind it?
That was just, it was really like I said, it was a piece about my process of writing. So that's really what it's about. It's just that I use the metaphor of clothing, you know.
Okay.
Forget dreams and forget jeans. I'm stitching dreams. I got plans to turn my words into sewing machines. About really what it was, it was about more of a critique of the content that we sometimes see. We live in a space that it's ripe for social commentary, and at the core, I think that's what art is. Poetry is social commentary. However, a lot of the time you find, you know, everyone just writing about the same things, and I guess maybe it's easier to do. Maybe it's less hassle than critiquing, you know, the status quo. So that's really what inspired it. Just me wanting to talk about the creative process, selecting my content, put my things together. Some people get it, some people won't. But it was more for me. I really wanted to do things that really be out how I you know, wrote a spoken word piece and what I wanted it to achieve.